Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to your second featured talk. We will be investigating how the cetaceans have become the masters of fat. The whales are famously large, rotund animals. This is especially true for the right whales and bowheads. This lecture will focus on the disadvantages of living in a marine environment and having high fat concentrations. Finally, we will explore how these cetaceans are obese, yet healthy, investigating how they differ from terrestrial mammals and don't suffer the same health problems from having high fat concentrations. Living in the water is thermally challenging because water has 23 times the thermal conductivity of air. Insulating the skeleton and muscles is a thick layer of blubber. In cetaceans, this subcutaneous layer has evolved into a specialized adipose tissue depot called blubber. The profile of blubber is formed from multiple layers of tissues. At the top you find the epidermis, followed by the blubber, the hypodermis, the connective tissue, and the muscle. The hypodermis is loose connective tissue composed of fat cells interlaid with bundles of collagen. It is loosely connected to the underlying muscle layer, and in the cetaceans, the fatty hypodermis functions as insulation. Blubber is of variable thickness and lipid content, depending on the species age and sex of the animal, as well as individual and seasonal variations. Blubber thickness varies, and its pattern of distribution optimizes the streamlined body shape.
Baleen whales have the thickest blubber layer in all marine mammals. From the diagrams, you can see the average blubber thickness. Survival of cetaceans. However, an excess in blubber can have a negative impact upon the external and internal anatomy of the individual. A study indicated that individuals with thicker blubber layers spend significantly more time gliding during ascent, which is less costly in energy, but conversely, more energy is needed to counteract the buoyancy of the blubber. This can be deemed as a disadvantage as the excess fat would require increasing the energetic cost to dive and move the propulsive appendages, as well as overcoming active drag when foraging. One possible problem with an important increase of fat would be a faster surfacing rate that can lead to decompression sickness. Mechanisms of sound reception are unknown in mysticetes. However, one study seems to have revealed that in accordance with odontocetes, bodies of fat are associated with the ears in mysticetes. Fatty areas are more susceptible to the bends, and it is possible that blubber also plays an important role in baleen whale hearing, and that an imbalance in blubber levels can damage a whale's ability to hear. Whales need to be able to control their heat loss in the marine environment, but also get their water supply from their fat stores. The trouble with water stored in fat is that it creates excess in heat dissipation. What is important to keep warm is the concentration of lipids. Whales with less blubber but higher lipid concentrations can maintain more body heat than whales with lower concentrations of lipids but more blubber. Further disadvantages include the level of energy uptake required when an individual is larger. Higher concentration of leptin proteins is in response to changing energetic demands will increase the level of leptin on the central nervous system, resulting in the inhibit food intake. One possible problem with an important increase of fat would be a faster surfacing rate that can lead to decompression sickness. Mechanisms of sound reception are unknown in mysticetes. However, one study seems to have revealed that in accordance with odontocetes, bodies of fat are associated with the ears in mysticetes. Fatty areas are more susceptible susceptible to the bends, and it is possible that blubber also plays an important role in baleen whale hearing, and that an imbalance in blubber levels can damage a whale's ability to hear. Although terrestrial mammals suffer from severe health impacts linked to high adipose concentration, this is not observed in cetaceans. Although some theories are just speculation, we know whales do not suffer from these fat-related diseases for a few reasons. Balaenoptera have adapted to possess tumour suppression mechanisms. Even though whales have more somatic cells due to their sheer size, which would indicate a higher probability of tumours, a study reported that whales do not have an increased risk of cancer, which suggests that mechanisms suppressing tumour formation exist. These mechanisms would include the control of immunoinflammatory responses, organ regeneration, and the regulation of cell proliferation. Analysis indicated that bow-headed whale blubber contains relatively high levels of omega-3 fatty acids, which have been suggested to be important in the treatment or prevention of many diseases such as elevated blood pressure and cholesterol, heart disease, and some cancers. Omega-6 fatty acids were rare or undetectable in blubber samples, which are associated to a higher cancer risk. Studies sequencing genomes of both bowhead and grey whales and comparing gene expression between the species as well as with other mammals found high activity levels of DNA repair genes and pathways. Adaptation for lipid-rich diet and insulation modulation studies have found greatly reduced expression of the growth factor receptor-bound protein 14 in bowhead whales. Protein 14 has an inhibitory effect on insulin receptor signaling by binding to receptors, which modulate downstream insulin signaling. Insulin reduces glucogenesis and promotes lipogenesis. The beneficial adaptation may serve to protect the long-lived bowhead whale against chronic dietary diseases. The evolutionary adaptations of internal and external anatomical features in mysticetes have allowed extensive survival throughout the prehistoric eras and has extensively allowed the species to adapt to the ever-changing aquatic environment, thus regarding the species as a prime example of positive evolutionary change.